And we should also talk about the other major backlash and drama going on with Transmog or transmogrification or armor synthesis, which has now been implemented. So obviously there was Bungie announced it. Pretty much the majority consensus was like, nah, this ain't it. This doesn't seem like a good strategy. Surprisingly, I mean, honestly, I expected Bungie to kind of 180 and like raise the cap and make just do something to get a bit of good faith back. But Bungie held firm and like this is Transmog and this is how it's launching. But what are your thoughts on Transmog, especially now that's in the game? How do you feel about it and the bounties, the grinding? What do you think about that?
I have a horrible feeling that this is something that players are going to initially hate and then grow to slowly accept. But I feel as though the backlash thus far is at very least going to mean that the cap and maybe somewhat the speed at which you earn things is going to be somewhat changed in the future. This was not a good launch and not a good look either for Bungie when it comes down to it. You know, armor synthesis had all the potential to be a really great, simple system where you could just earn materials from the game and then go ahead and turn them into Ada 1 and then just create your transmogs. And credit to Bungie for giving us 10 free ones to start with, but that's not going to last forever. You know, I know 10 people at very least who immediately used all their 10 and then are like, well, I wanted to do all these other things here, and I guess I'm going to use my class specific ones. Okay, sure, that's fine. But then what about my other classes where I wanted to do 12 things? It's just, this level of grind is kind of incredulous. I mean, to give you an idea... At this point in Destiny, yeah. Yeah, and I think more egregious than anything as well is the fact that they've pulled what is effectively a really stunning move in terms of how poorly it was going to be received, which is that it's the synth strand earn rates, which is that it's tied to time. You know, there is a 2-minute cooldown on you earning a synth strand from a kill. And that means that you actually have to put a certain amount of time instead of just grinding out all of your stuff. That's not good. I mean, if people are going to go ahead and have a hefty play session, I feel like they should have their time respected in that sense, because not everybody gets to play the game for 25 hours. It's one of these moments then where you'll sit there and the actual mathematics states that you will earn over 25 hours a full armor set. But that's 25 hours of playtime, and some people get to play the season barely any of that. And then it's not you do these 25 hours and it's immediately in your inventory. No, that's 25 hours to get a bounty. And those bounties are sometimes hard. Yeah. I mean, you know, I sit there and I'm not going to struggle to kill 40 champions in Nightfalls, even on the, you know, the like harder versions of everything. In fact, it probably makes it go faster. But for some players who really do not play this game a lot, killing 40 champions is going to be a scary one. Getting, you know, hundreds of thousands of points of score is going to be a lot. Doing a ton of things of Altars of Sorrow if you chose the World Bounty. Lord forbid if you chose the Gambit or Crucible ones. Lord forbid if you chose the raid ones, but you only get to raid once a week and it's a really quick raid that you did and you got the Orbs of Light one, but just made just a few, too few Orbs of Light to actually get the bounty done. These are the things that are going to drive players mad. And I think that Bungie needs to seriously reconsider how this grind works if it's actually going to take place. Yeah. It's great that we have a transmog system finally, but it's an ugly transmog system. Yeah. Like that's the only way I can put it, and it's not kind to the devs, and I'm sorry about that, but yeah, this is not good.
Well, the thing is, it's not even to the devs though. That's the thing, because you know the developers, like Transmog as it is a very good system. The armor synthesis, the way it works, the way the shaders, like the customization aspect, like the actual system is very good. They knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
The way it was implemented and the rules of how it works are not very good. But the thing is that those things weren't decided by just Bungie devs and designers. These were decided by leadership. The thing that a lot of people might not understand is that these aren't decisions made by developers. This isn't like buffing or nerfing a pulse rifle and deciding, how much damage this should do, or grenade, or, you know, just nerfing something in a lost sector. This is accounting. This is Bungie's bottom line. This is tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, and that's the only thing that I don't like, is that how you can tell a lot of things in Destiny are very carefully calculated and micromanaged based on the dollar. And you can tell, like, Transmog as a whole, maybe I was naive, but I expected it just to be more along the lines of a quality of life update, just a cool feature of, oh, nice, now I can customize my Guardian the way that you kind of assume you always should have been able to since day one. Transmog has literally been on the wish list. I remember seeing it in 2014.
Right.
Transmog was always a thing of like, can I wear a piece of armor that has good stats and good perks and good attributes and make it look, just cosmetically make it look like something else, so I can look how I want and also have the power and feel how I want. That's the goal of Transmog. Yeah. But Bungie's been obviously teetering on it for like 7 years, and then to finally get it in the game after all this time and have it so riddled with Eververse and microtransactions is just, I think it's in bad taste. And I think I did expect them to at least repeal it back a bit, but they're holding very strong. But again, this is something this is to do with accounting, and these decisions aren't up to developers at the level of people designing these things. These are leadership decisions of, like, I guarantee there are some whiteboards and spreadsheets somewhere in Bungie where they would have calculated, none of these things are mistakes. They have calculated this piece of synth strand equates to this many hours, equates to this many dollars, and they've basically just equilibriumed it to, okay, we want to hit this dollar amount and that equals this level of grind, and it's all very carefully calculated. And these aren't things that are just going to be like, okay, we'll just, like, you know, remove this and we'll just raise the caps, because as much as I want them to do, by the way, these are things that would literally just wipe out probably, I don't know, tens of millions of dollars. Like, they make massive money. But yeah, I just always envisioned it being, again, maybe I'm naive, but I always envisioned it being more of just a quality of life, making the game better, kind of like crossplay. But it's almost like getting crossplay, but they're like, oh, you can crossplay 3 times a week, and then after that you got to pay for it. It's just like, huh? Like, what? I thought this was just going to be, I can just, I mean, I understand the elements of Eververse being in there. Like, I understand it can't be completely free, but it just seemed way too heavily involved with Eververse, and it seems like even the little things like how they're tied per class. Like, what if I only play on Hunter and I want to use all of my Transmog materials on my Hunter, but now I've got all these wasted materials on the Warlock and Titan? The fact that like that kind of that doesn't sit right with me. Just the way they've split it, because a lot of people don't play 3 characters. Like, I'd love to see the percentage of people. Most people just play 1. So to have half of your 2/3 of your Transmog materials on these other characters that you probably don't use, and your alts, you don't really care about their appearance that much. Most people have their one character, their main they play on, which they care about, and they want to have those visual appearances. So you should be able to stack them on the main character you play on. But it seems like they spend almost longer figuring out how to monetize it than how to just implement it. And it seems like kind of, is this why it took this long to get it? Because it's like it took you this long to figure out how to count every penny and make sure everything is just like making the most money possible. It's I don't know, there's a lot of things that I can see why it received the amount of backlash that it did, because there's a lot of things that don't sit right, I think. Right.
I think, and I hate that I'm even doing anything close to playing devil's advocate here, but I think there is a side to which, again, this could be resolved by some good communication sides of things. And the reason I say that is this. When you sit down and look at something like, say, Whisper having ornaments sold for it after the mission was complete, there was some amount of backlash for that. Most of it was actually not too bad, because people sat there were like, yeah, Whisper was a great mission. I'm happy to go ahead and buy this new ornament for my powerful gun. You know, the Whisper of the Worm mission was free. These ornaments, you know, this is the equivalent of tipping the dev.
Yeah, exactly.
Those Whisper ornaments supposedly were bought enough to the point where they were able to fund the creation of 0 Hour. And that's one of those points at which Bungie literally sat there and told us the exact, you know, the exact nature of what our microtransactions had bought. And that, I think, is a really effective way of justifying it, is by telling us, you know, this is effectively what your content helped fund. In some kind of... I do not anticipate this would be the case, because there's no way a studio goes into the depth of the financials like this. But if they at very least stated, hey, with this we were able to hire new developers and a new team that was able to work on enhancing these parts of the game, and as a result, you now have or heroic raids and heroic dungeons or whatever they may be, or master is the term they use now. But yeah, you now have master dungeons and master raids, and we were able to create these new pieces of content in these expansions and these seasons. If that's the case, I think that you have the ability to sit there and say like, hey, we know this is expensive, but we do it for the sake of justifying the creation here. And this is the thing that I think gives Bungie a huge advantage. You know that in a company like Activision Blizzard, those things would be going straight to shareholders. You know, like they are looking for a minimum viable product in that particular sense on the pure basis of the fact that theirs is not something which is about the passion of making a game, but is instead a financial statement. And undoubtedly, you know, Bungie has a certain degree to which people are going to sit there and try to make their dime. They're going to try and make money. But I think that the potential justification could be, we sat there and we used this money to expand the company. And it is not outside of the question of development time being, you know, increased by having more devs hired because of these things making money. So, I mean, you know, it's one of these very interesting moments where suddenly we have a question being asked of, is there a thing that we get in return for this? And if Bungie somehow communicated that this was a thing that we got, maybe the community would see it and would think, yeah, you know what, that's worth the price of it. I get it. But that is a huge hypothetical, and it's definitely playing devil's advocate. And it's definitely one of those things of, you have to sit there and, as a consumer, wonder what the true price of that is. And I think we can kind of already see a version of this in the game. Season of the Chosen had a huge amount of content in it, you know? Massive seasonal story stuff, tons of cutscenes and great moments in that. A new strike, you had tons of new weapons, you had the battlegrounds, which in themselves are like miniature strikes. You had Presage and the 3 versions of it with fantastic new exotics, new stasis aspects that you were also paying for. And all of that was $10, and it effectively provided 3 months worth of content. And you know, that's a lot of value for $10. Yeah, it seems as though if you take that and compare that to an old Destiny 1 DLC,
definitely
the value proposition doesn't even stand up with
way
Destiny
more than
1.
like Dark Below or most of those early expansions.
And keep in mind, Dark Below had a raid, you know? But the raid was almost it for the expansion. It entertained you for maybe a few weeks, and then hard mode came out, and a few weeks beyond that, sure. But then we had the content drought, and suddenly that $10 didn't look like it had bought us so much, and we were like, well, we also have a strike and some Crucible maps. But that one strike was a Destiny 1 strike that had no real story build up to it with most of the things, and also was kind of just another big damage sponge in the form of Omnigul back in her OG iteration, and it's not a great story that aligns with all of that either, and you start to take a look and see that, yeah, the grass really is greener on this side of the fence, and it's like, okay, as opposed to having this be the culmination of the story, Omnigul is the tacked-on villain that you have to face as part of this, which, yeah, I don't know. Like, there are real night and day differences with all of this stuff. It's just, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, the value proposition is there, I think.
Yeah.
But you need to justify it for players. And right now, there is no easy way of them justifying Transmog.